Hello and welcome to Faithfully Stampin' with Jennifer Helm. I am Jennifer Helm, the Faithful Stamper and independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up. Today I have for you a waterfall card. This is a technique I learned many moons ago when I was first learning a lot about stamping, and I haven't really made any cards with it since, but I kept the directions. And then a friend of mine sent me a Christmas card last year in this style, and I set it aside so that I would remember to teach it on a video. This is called a waterfall card, and when you pull the tag at the bottom, the card waterfalls in a beautiful design as you pull the tag. And I will show you the card that my friend sent me later on in the samples, but I'm going to go ahead and teach you how to do this. If you're thinking, wow, this looks super complicated, don't worry, it's not. A little bit of scoring goes a long way with this card. So to start with, you will need a piece of cardstock that is either 8.5 by 5.5 or 4.25 by 11. It doesn't really matter which. I just put both of those dimensions on the paper because the card that I initially made, I had this style of card, and then when I cut my cardstock for my sample tonight, I cut it the wrong way. So that's the only reason I put both of them on there. So it doesn't really matter, you just need a card base. This is Calypso Coral. Next thing you need is a piece of designer series paper that is 5.25 inches tall by 4 inches wide. We're not going to glue this on our card yet. We have a very important step to do before we do that. And that step is to take either a piece of cardstock or a piece of designer series paper. Both will work. It doesn't really matter which one. Do whatever you like best. That is 1 inch tall and 4 inches wide. And this is going to be the piece on the front of our card that creates the waterfall effect. It holds our panel in place. So we don't want to put any glue here. We want to glue it down either with dimensionals or with a brad. You can do either if you don't have any brads. If you're not familiar with what a brad is, they have lots of decorative ones these days. These were in my stash, but Stampin' Up! Does have some. And they fold open once you put them through your paper. So I have my Stampin' Pierce mat that I keep for piercing only. You can see mine is well loved. It has lots of little pock marks in it. And I keep this one for piercing only. I do have another one that I use for stamping, just so sometimes the little dots will interfere with your images. So what we're going to do is take our strip of either designer series paper or cardstock, put it about 1 inch from the bottom. You definitely don't want it up high because your card won't go together well, but about 1 inch from the bottom, and you need a piercing tool. This is the piercing end of my Take Your Pick tool, and I am just going to put a hole in either end of my strip of paper here. Now I can take this out of the way and I haven't damaged my work surface. The only thing I recommend is when you put your brads through your paper, take a look at which way they open. You don't want them opening side to side because they'll stick out the side of the card. Make sure they're going to open up and down. I learned that with my very first card, and these are kind of large that I'm using, so I needed to pay attention to that. And then just fold it open and give it a press, and then repeat on the other end. And so if you're using brads, the back of your card will look like this. And then you just have a very small gap to be able to fit your tag through. And that's what you want. Now, if you don't have brads available, it's okay. You can just take a dimensional or maybe 2 small ones and put them beneath that strip on either end. It will still work. Now you can go ahead and glue this to your card front. And you don't need any special glue. I am going to use a little bit extra just to make sure this isn't going to pull off because this is my Stampin' Seal, not my Stampin' Seal Plus. And just layer this on the front of the card with a little bit of a border and press. Now the next thing we're going to do is some stamping to create the panels we're going to need for the front and the inside of the card. So I'm using a photopolymer stamp set, so I do need my Stampin' Pierce mat, the one that doesn't have the holes in it. And I'm using the Sweet as a Peach stamp set for all my stamping tonight. And the photopolymer is just the clear rubber stamp. There's no foam built in, so that's why I need the little cushion underneath. So I'm going to start with my envelope. This is just your basic card envelope. And I always like to gussy up my envelopes a little bit. I like them to not be plain. So I'm going to start with a peach stamp. And if you're new to stamping, you don't want to sink your stamp down into your ink pad. You just want to tap gently, tap, tap, tap. With photopolymer, you can look right through and see if you've got enough ink. And if you're not sure, just tap it again. And then you want firm pressure, but not sinking down into the paper again when you stamp your image. 1, 2, 3. That's what I like to say. And then lift up and move. And of course my peach needs a little stem. So there is my little stem. Set that to the side. Now I have a piece of basic white for the inside of my card. This is 5 1/4 by 4. And for this card, let's see, this part of the card, I'm going to put some words. This is a birthday card. Actually, I'm going to leave the happy birthday off this one, but I'll show you the inside of the other one. I have a friend I'm thinking specifically of sending this to. She has a very special anniversary coming up with Stampin' Up! So instead of a birthday card, I'm just going to say, let's celebrate you. And then I can write my message on the inside. So you can be flexible. And then I'm going to add some little accents to the 4 corners. And I don't know if you can see, I messed up a little bit here on the corner. My image didn't quite come completely through, but since it's photopolymer, I'm going to try to line it up and stamp again. Oh, I was pretty darn close. Look at that. That's one very nice thing about photopolymer stamps. All right, next up, for the front of the card, you need 4 panels of basic white that are 1 3/4 inches square. We're going to layer these on other pieces of cardstock, but in the meantime, what we're going to do is decorate these. So first up, I'm going to go back to that peach I used on the envelope and stamp. And you might need to help your paper come off the stamps a little bit. Sometimes it falls off on its own and sometimes it wants to be a little persnickety. You can just nudge it with your finger or a bone folder or something. Take your pick tool. All right. Next up, I have some little, I guess they could be cherries, but they could also be small peaches. And I'm going to stamp like that. Now, since I stamped off the page a little bit, I'm going to grab a piece of scrap that I have here because I want to stamp some leaves around there. That would look a little odd if I left it alone. So I'm using Calypso Coral ink for the peaches and Pear Pizzazz for the rest. Let's see, I had some fun lining this up earlier. I get myself confused as to where the leaves and the stem should go. There we go. And I can see right through that clear block to know where I'm supposed to go. And look at that. All right, we're gonna keep on going. 2 more. So I have a stamp that says, "Have a peachy day." And to that, I'm going to accent it with that little floral stamp. I just cleaned it off so I'm not stamping in 2 colors of ink. Some little accents here around the corners. And then I need 1 more, so I have some flowers from that stamp set as well. And these are cute, but I wanted a little fill in, so I'm going to go back to that floral stamp just one more time and stamp a couple times to fill in a little bit. All right. Now I think there is one more bit of stamping, but we're going to come back to that a little bit later. So I'm going to close my ink pads up in the meantime. So our next step, we're going to layer these 4 white pieces on 4 squares of cardstock that are 2 inches square. And I'm going with Calypso Coral to match my colors here. Again, you don't need any special adhesive, stamp and seal, liquid glue, even tear and tape would work. We are going to use tear and tape on the waterfall panel of our card because that we need to be good and sturdy. But we will get to that in a minute. So once you have these layered, you can set them to the side because we need to create our waterfall panel first before we move on. And to move on, what we need to do is take a piece of cardstock that is 2 inches by 9 inches. You definitely want this to coordinate with your card. It doesn't necessarily have to be white. We're going to cover most of the top with the panels we just created, but we can also do a little stamping on this, which we'll get to in a moment. But first we're going to create the score lines that we need. So we're going to take our cardstock here and get your paper trimmer, scorer, or your simply scoreboard, whatever you have, some kind of scoring tool. You're going to take your 9-inch side and put it at the top. And you want to score at 2 inches, 2 3/4 inches, 3 1/2, and 4 1/4. And I'll repeat those just in case I went a little too fast. And that's all you need to do. So those score lines were at 2, 2 3/4, 3 1/2, and 4 1/4. Go ahead and fold on all your score lines. You can use a bone folder if you want, or just your fingers. Either one is fine. And you will notice when you take your paper and fold on that uppermost score line, you're going to have a long rectangle and then the pieces that you scored. On the long rectangle, you're going to want to decorate the bottom. If you have a tag topper punch, you can use your tag topper punch to pretty up the end. If you don't have a tag topper punch, it's okay. You could simply round your corners and then punch a hole in the middle and it would serve the same purpose. You just need something to create a pull tab. Now, I'm going to go ahead and do my stamping. I usually forget to do this, but I'm thinking of it now, so we'll go ahead. You can stamp a little bit of a message here. You don't want to go too far up on the tag, but you also don't want to be too close to the bottom, then it's going to stick out the bottom of the card and look odd. So what I'm going to do is just grab a couple more stamps. And one says, "Hope your day is as," we're keeping with our peachy theme, "sweet as a peach." Like that. And then I'm going to go back to that oh so cute little floral stamp for a little accent around the edges here. And then this will be ready in just a moment to go on the card. Okay. So here's the assembly part that creates this waterfall card. What you're going to do is take the end that you prettied up on the tag and slide it under the band of either designer series paper or cardstock. And you'll want to put the tag pretty close to the bottom. You're going to have a little bit of that tag sticking out the bottom. Make sure it's straight, and you'll fold it over like this. So make sure you've got it lined up and level. You'll open it back up, grab a piece of tear and tape, no wider than your card, and then you're going to put it right on top of this band, because what this does is create our anchor for our waterfall panel. So peel the backing off. Again, make sure you're straight up and down, side to side, and just go ahead and fold that closed and press. And now this is our anchor piece here, but the rest still moves back and forth. So what we're going to do now is glue on those panels that we created. So you'll want to figure out what order you want them in, and we're going to start from the bottom up. So I'm going to take some tear and tape. This is where this tear and tape is important so these waterfall pieces don't come off. Now on this larger square, you can put I put 2 pieces of tear and tape, one towards the top and one towards the bottom, like this, because you're going to glue down more of the surface. Then on these 3 panels, we're going to put a strip of tear and tape up near the top. Don't touch that score line, but you do want to come pretty close to it. And I'm using a clear block to help me rip my tear and tape pieces off. It gives me neater edges, and it also helps the tape more often than not stick to my fingers as much. Oh, goodness gracious. I was a little too happy with my tape there, so I'm going to fix that end. Okay. Woo. So now we're going to start with this bottom panel. Peel off your tear and tape. Take whichever panel you want to be the bottom of your waterfall and decide if it's a floral image like this, you can just decide which way you want it to go. Put it just a hair under that score line. You definitely don't want it overhanging the score line at all. Line it up on the sides and nice and straight and give it a press. Then we're going to continue to work our way up. Again, lining up the top of our panel just underneath those score lines. And when you get to the top, repeat for the last one. Give it the whole thing a good press. And then when you pull on your little tag here at the bottom, your card will waterfall. You might need to give it a little help coming back up. My first one was a little rough, but it worked. Before I forget, I'm going to glue this panel here in my card. Like so. We need to add our ribbon pull. So you just need a small amount of ribbon. This does not need a lot. And what I'm going to do is pull my tag down, feed the ribbon from the front to the back, and then loop the ends through. And I pull most of the way with both, but then I go one at a time because this actually tightens the knot. If you try to pull on both at once, it won't tighten the knot as much. I just learned that this week. So it's what I've been doing wrong with those types of loops all these years. And then last but not least, I'm going to take some rhinestones and just add them to the front of my card. I had a little extra white space here that I wanted to fill in, so I thought a little bling would be the perfect touch. So just like that. And so we have our completed card with our waterfall design. All right, I have some more samples to show you. The card that started it all, this isn't the original card I made way back when, but this is the card that reintroduced this idea to me. This is what my friend Melody made for me for Christmas. She's some beautifully sparkly paper and just rounded some of the edges, which I really, really liked. And she, instead of using a full card base, just used one panel of 5.5 by 4 1/4 for her card. So you can do either, up to you. Then I have this sweet ladybug card. Here I tied a knot instead of the loop for my pull tab. And there's the inside of the waterfall and the inside of the card. Now, the first one that I made here, I thought it was a little rough, but it's been behaving the more I've played with it. For this one, I did not use brads. I used the dimensionals underneath, and I just put gems on the top to make it sort of look like brads. And this is obviously a baby card. Very cute. working with those colors of the paper. Now, you are not tied in to the vertical orientation on this card. You can actually make it in the horizontal orientation. The only thing that is different about the instructions I just gave you is you glue these panels on sideways instead of up and down. That's the only difference. Everything else is the same. Okay? And sometimes you do need to give it a little help to come back through there. And then sweet message on the inside. And this one I think is my favorite. I was trying to decide. I was really pleased with a lot of these samples, but this one, I watercolor penciled the images. This is from the Happy Hedgehog set. So of course it kind of makes you happy with these beautiful images, the sweet little hedgehogs, and then your message on the inside of the card. All right, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in and learning how to make the waterfall fun fold with me. If you haven't already, I would love for you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you click the notification bell, it'll tell you every time I post a new video or go live on the page. You can find me over on Facebook as The Faithful Stamper, and I go live with videos there twice a week. You'll also see different projects that I post there. And if you don't have a demonstrator you're currently working with and you would like to see your current catalog, feel free to reach out to me and I'd be happy to send you one. Thank you so much for watching. Take care and happy crafting.